Hi, welcome to the 8th of this series of videos for volunteers who are creating the Maryborough website. I thought I would round up this series of videos by looking at some of the other blocks that are used within the Maryborough website. I'll be looking at the block quote, the call to action, and the info box. I'm also going to be using the post that we used earlier in the series of videos, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to add a container, and again that's going to hold our block. Again, it's the full width, but I want to make it boxed. You're actually going to be quite familiar with doing this now because we have been doing this over a series of videos. But this is just a few of the blocks that I wanted to look at. There's loads more there that are available that we could use. So what I want to do is I want to come up to my search box and I'm going to start typing in block quote. Once I see that, I'm going to drag it over and I'm going to put it in my container. Now what we see here is that we have got text for the quote and also an author's name. What I want to do is I could type in the text here, but what I'm actually going to do is I've already got it typed in elsewhere, so I'm just going to do Control V and that's going to put it in. I've also got an author name, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double click and I'm going to type in my name rather than my actual name. So that gives the quote and who you're going to attribute it to. So what I'd like to look at now are some of the settings for the block quote. So under our General tab, we can actually choose how we want this to appear. Now, border is selected, so if I click away from this, what we'll see is we've got a little blue border here. What I could do is if I click back on this again, I could click on quotation, and this time what we see is a quotation mark appearing. It doesn't have one at the start and end, it just has one at the start. We can also choose how we want that to appear. So at the moment it's saying inline, but I'm going to come over and I'm going to click on normal. And what that's going to do is, whereas inline it had it on the same line as the text, this actually puts it on the line above the text. We can also choose how we want to align our text. So we could center it, or we could put it to the right hand side. As I've got this at the right hand side of the visible area, I'm going to leave it right aligned. If we had an image of our author who actually came up with this quote, we could actually say to change an image and then put that image, their photo app as well, and that would display a very small version of it. What we can also do is for our Twitter icon, we can leave it here. We can have it as an icon, which just shows the bird, the text, or we could leave it at both. We could also have it the classic style, or we could have it like a speech bubble with a little pointy bit coming out, or we could have it just as a link. I'm just going to leave it as classic as well. We can actually choose not to have the Twitter icon. So I'm going to click on this button, enable icon, and that's going to switch it off for us. I'm now going to come along to the Style tab and look at some of the items here. Mainly what I'm going to look at is our icon colour. And we can click on the colour circle and we can choose whichever colour from the theme that we want to put in. So I'm choosing this sort of orangey colour as well. As we work our way down, what we can do is we can change the quote colour as well. Now, I'd be quite careful about changing the colour of the quote. Always bear in mind, we've got some people who may well have a visual impairment, and it makes it quite difficult if the colour of the text is too close in colour to the background colour. So for example, if I chose this colour here, if you've got a good visibility, that looks really nice. But if you've got visual impairment, that could actually be a nightmare to read. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make it quite a dark black colour, so it makes it just easier for them to read. Also, you can do the same for your author, and you can change the colour of that as well. Again, I'm going to make this quite dark colour so that it's going to be really quite visually attractive for people and easier to read. And as I go through all the other blocks, both the call to action and the info box, although I will be showing you how to change the colour, the same thing applies to them as well. Try and keep it to quite a dark colour so that we've got a lot of difference between the text and the black background. So what I'm going to look at now is I'm going to move on and I'm going to look at call to action. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of that search text, and I've got my container, so I'm going to drag it down onto the bottom of the page. This time I'm going to make another two items. Again, they're both the same size, and I'm going to say the container width is going to be boxed again. So this time what I want to look at is the call to action. So again, what we can do is we can see it here, or we could do a search, but I'm just going to drag it over because I can see it, and I'm going to drop it into that part. Now what we've got here is we've got a heading, we've got the text, and we've got a button. And when we click on the button, that's going to take people to whichever page we point them to. So if I, under call to action, I can get rid of that text in the heading and I can type in text of my own. I've also got text in the main paragraph, so what I can do is select that. I can delete all the text that's there and I can type in my own text. I would like to show you a little bit more about these buttons, this Read More button. So if I come along to the General tab and I come down, I can click on the drop down beside Button. I can choose not to have a border round the button, so I can pick any of these different styles of buttons there. Alternatively, if I do quite like the text, what I can do is I can select one of these buttons with white backgrounds. So I can have one with an arrow, or I can just have the round button. Now underneath that I've got Inherit from Theme. If I switch that on, it will now take the border of that button and it's going to make it that orangey colour that we've used before. The other thing that I want to do is I want to come down to my link. I'm going to get rid of that hashtag and I'm going to put in a page, and that's us now put in our page. So when people click on the button, that's the page they're going to go to. I can change the style of some of these items as well. So again, bearing in mind what I've just said about the box and the different colours, if I can click on style, I can actually change the colour of my text. And that's just the heading at the moment. If I can down to description, I could also change the colour of the text there, but I'm just going to leave it there as it is. So that's us now finished our call to action button. So the next thing I want to look at is the info box. So I'm going to come up into my search box and I'm going to type in info. We see info box coming there, so I'm going to drag it over and I'm going to drop it into the part of my container where I want it to be. We've now got several things in this box. We've got a little icon on the top, which is our little tick. We've got a heading and we've got text. And what I'll show you later on is some other things that we can add into here as well. So if we stay to the General tab, we've got the ability to switch off that little tick there, but I'm just going to switch it back on and leave it there. We can also select the position for that little image or icon, and I'm going to leave it at above title because I think it looks quite nice there. We can choose to change our icon if we want to. Again, very much the same way as you would change an image in the other pages. You can click on change icon and then you get lots of different icons that you can choose. But I'm quite happy with this one, so I'm going to leave it. If I select on the content, I can choose the different alignment that I've got. It's centered. I could make it left aligned or I could make it right aligned, but I'm going to leave it as centered. What I can also do is I can add in a separator. So if I click on that drop down, it allows me to pick the style of separator I want. So what I want to do this time is I want to click on solid. And that puts our little line in here, and we can choose where we want it to be. So I think it's quite nice to have it after the title, so I'm going to leave it there. Now, this is a phrase that's quite common, seeing we've just looked at how to put in a call to action box. What we can do is put in a call to action in this one as well. This is one of our other options. So if I click the drop down arrow, what we see is that I can say what type of call of action I want. So I could have it just text, or I could have a button, or I could make the complete box a call to action. So if anyone clicked on anywhere on the box, that would actually take them to the link that we set up. I'm going to leave it at button. And this will look very familiar to you because this is what we've just seen under call of action. We've got our choice of different buttons. And we can also say whether we want to inherit from theme. So again, I've selected inherit from theme, so I get that little orangey border coming around my button. I can change a lot of things in the style of these items as well. So what I can do is click on style, and this time we're going to look at the icon or the image that we put in. At the moment it's at default, so I'm just going to leave it there as well. I could actually say stacked, and we see that it's turned it a sort of blue colour there, or I could say it's framed, and we could change the colours there if we wanted to. But I'm just going to leave it as default. When I do that, I've also got the choice of changing its colour. So I'm going to select that, and I'm going to change that little orangey colour that we've been using in our three themes so far. I can make changes to the title. Again, I could change the colour of it, but I'm going to leave it at the moment. I could come down to my separator, and again I can click on the drop down there, and I could change the width of it if I wanted to, so I could actually make it a longer or a shorter line. I'm just going to leave it at that, and I could also make it a much thicker line if I wanted, but I quite like it at 2, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I can also change the colour of this line, and again I'm going to pick up our theme colour so that it fits in with everything else that we've got. Again, we would type any text that we wanted into our info box, and we can type in any text that we want into this main text as well, the description. The other thing I want to do here is I want to click on border. And what that allows me to do is, again, this will look very familiar because we've been using this earlier on in one of the videos. So I'm going to click on solid for the style, and I'm going to use the same settings as before. So I'm going to change the width to 5, and I'm going to change the colour to this orangey colour. Now, the other thing I'm going to do that we could have actually applied to any of our previous items is I'm going to change the radius. At the moment, if you look at each of the corners, they actually meet in quite a sharp corner. So what we can do is we could use our up and down arrows, or I could simply type in a number, and what that allows it to do is actually curve off that corners. So again, it actually looks quite nice if we do that. I'm going to go back to my general tab, and this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down under call to action, and I'm going to click in a link. So I'm going to copy a link. It's the same link as we actually used for this one, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to paste it in. On some of these pages, as soon as you start typing, it does actually find the link for you, but I noticed on both of these items it didn't do that. So just to be aware of that. It may be that they'll do an update soon and that'll work okay by the time you come to actually doing it. So that's us finished this video, and it's also us finished this series of videos. So I hope they haven't been too traumatic for you. And if there's any questions, you'll have been given my name and contact details. So please feel free to actually get in touch with me and ask me anything. So all the best with your designing your pages.